Right, good morning. Call the meeting to order here at 9:30. Start with the adoption of the agenda. Any additions, submissions from administration? Not seeing any. Any from council? Not seeing any. If I get a motion, Councillor Prestige.
I'll make a motion that council adopts the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I will call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. 3.1, March 12, 2025, regular council meeting minutes. Hope everybody had a chance to take a look at those. Any errors, any omissions? Anybody sees there? Councillor Burrows?
I'll make a motion that we adopt March 12, 2025 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, again, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. I know we're a couple minutes before the 9:35, but do we have everybody here for the presentation? If we do,
we also, Mr. Chair, we also have just a bunch of new staff to introduce.
okay,
to guests.
feel free. Mr. Ferris?
Good morning, Your Worship and members of council. I have two new employees to introduce, and Andrew has one. First of all, Jamie Williams. He started as equipment operator in the fort. Started on March the 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. He came to us with 20 plus years of equipment experience in the logging industry. We welcome Jamie to our county. And secondly, we have Mr. Patrick Oates. He started this week on Monday as our utility technician. He just moved to Anselmo and started build his family there, and we are very grateful to have him as over 11 years of controls and systems technician knowledge. So thank you very much.
And Mr. Worley?
Reeve Cush and members of council, I'd like to introduce you to Alexa Wharton. She's our new accounting clerk. She's been with us for about 3 weeks, I believe. And she's part-time at taking business administration at the Northern College. And you can see her on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at the front counter, working away for us.
I think, given, I guess we have new faces, we'll do a quick round of introductions here. If you want to start, Councillor Dean?
Sure.
So we know who they are.
So Alan Dean, I represent Whitecourt Central, like the West Mountain Road area.
Jeremy Wilhelm, Whitecourt East.
Peter Pilkin, Freeman River, Goose Lake.
Dave Cush, I'm the councillor for Anselmo and the Reeve.
John Burrows, councillor for Whitecourt West.
Bruce Prestige, councillor for Blue Ridge Division 5.
Devin Williams, councillor for Fortis and Winton.
Well, thank you very much for coming on board, and I guess we'll get to know each other here as the rest of this goes on. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. With that, I guess let's move down to 9:35, our Alberta Forest Products Association delegation. Morning, sir.
Morning.
You guys did a round of introductions here to the staff. Do you want us to go through again, or?
No, I'm good.
All right.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Yeah, so I'll just get into it. Well, thanks very much for allowing me to present here on behalf of the Alberta Forest Products Association. My name is Dan Moore. I'm the Director of Environment for the AFPA, and which is based in Edmonton. The AFPA represents the entire forest product sector in the province of Alberta. So the sawmills, the pulp and paper mills, the OSB plywood, and so on and so forth, and MDF. Our association represents the entire spectrum. So our members pay us to lobby on their behalf for different things. Prior to my being with the AFPA, I worked at Alberta Newsprint for 33 and a half years, and then transitioned to the AFPA in 2023. So I got a bunch of slides to go through, so I'm gonna have to be quick to get through all of them, because I see I have 15 minutes to get through this. So, yeah, so today we're here. Obviously there's a crisis kind of going on in the world with regards to trade and want to talk about the trade challenges facing our sector, particularly rising softwood lumber duties, U.S. trade barriers, global competition, and what we can do to safeguard Alberta's forest industry in the future. The forest products industry in Alberta supports over 30,000 jobs across Alberta. Most of those are in rural areas, and where forestry is a primary employer. So Whitecourt and Woodlands County being a great example of that. In addition to direct employment, forestry contributes to transportation, construction, engineering, manufacturing, and creates a rippling effect across multiple sectors in terms of job creation and bringing money into our communities. With what's going on in the world right now, the stakes are high. Alberta's forestry sector contributes significantly to our economy, but it's at risk due to factors beyond our control: trade, tariffs, regulatory hurdles, and a shifting global trade landscape. So the elephant in the room is trade barriers and tariffs on Canadian softwood lumber. Approximately 50% of Alberta's forest products are exported to the United States, making trade with that country a key component of our industry's success. The rising trade barriers threaten our ability to compete and grow as an industry. These factors risk the livelihood of our communities where the forest products companies operate. So that in the current situation, Canada's forest industry faces a 55% tax on products going into the U.S. Trump announced a 25% tariff on all Canadian goods. I guess we'll see next week how all that plays out. And a recent increase in duties on lumber from 14 to nearly 30%. So steps the government of Alberta can take. So we want to help the Alberta government find solutions to help us and help our communities. And the Alberta government has a critical role to play in ensuring our forestry sector remains strong despite all these trade challenges. So we need the Alberta government to help us advocate for Alberta forest products in the U.S. One of the most important steps is strong advocacy at the federal and international levels, and Alberta needs to push back against unfair trade practices and communicate why these tariffs hurt both Canadians and Americans. And there have been trade missions and discussions going on in Washington, and I think there's a trade mission that's going to be heading to Texas, and south of the border we do have strong support from home building associations. So they recognize how these tariffs are going to be hurting the consumer in the United States, and with the average price of a house built in some areas going up by tens of thousands of dollars because of the tariffs. Lumber duties are a tax on U.S. consumers. I just touched on that, and they depend on our wood to keep prices stable. Despite what we've heard from out of Washington, the U.S. Cannot supply enough of their own domestic lumber to make up for lumber that Canada currently ships south of the border. Alberta's forest industry supports thousands of American jobs. Pulp and paper from Alberta is a key input in the U.S. Paper packaging, publishers, and packaging manufacturing. The forest industry in Alberta buys many products that are made in the U.S., including machinery, trucks, resins, chemicals, and technologies. So it's obviously a great trade arrangement, or at least it has been. By working closely with the federal government, Alberta must push for a fair and long-term resolution to the softwood lumber dispute. One way that the province can help out is to keep Alberta's regulatory costs low. Trade barriers are only one part of the challenge. Domestic policies also impact our ability to compete. We've seen what's happened in British Columbia, where poor or rising regulatory costs have really crushed the industry in British Columbia. There's not a lack of fiber British Columbia, it's the cost of getting that fiber to facilities and to process it. That's something that we definitely don't want to see happening in Alberta. We don't want to become like BC. Competitive timber dues and streamlined permitting will help mills operate efficiently and remain viable, and keeping costs manageable protects jobs and ensures continued investment in Alberta's forest sector. One thing that AFPA and the Wood Building Association is build with Alberta Wood, and that's one way to help counteract trade uncertainty is to boost domestic demand. So there's a lot of activity going on working with architects, but also with the people that write the building codes to allow for taller, bigger buildings to be constructed using wood construction. So AFPA has been active with that. And by doing that, the more wood we use here, the less we rely on exporting to the United States. So just encouraging, if you have any infrastructure projects, to consider using wood instead of some other products that may not be produced in Canada or in Alberta. Build with Alberta Wood Act would be a powerful policy tool to incentivize local use. British Columbia and Quebec already have implemented similar programs with success. And promoting mass timber construction and engineered wood products create new markets for Alberta lumber. This slide here, that's a 18-story building, wood-built building. It's the Brock's Commons, which is a student housing at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. So that's you can build some pretty significant structures using wood build. So
Just hold your second. We got that councilor had a question.
yes,
Did we want to hold questions until after, or? Is it-
that's up to you.
Okay, well, I'll just ask, when I look at a structure like that and, you know, I see obviously the connections of your industry to, you know, keeping the product purchased locally, et cetera. What about fire rating? How does wood stack up to conventional building codes, et cetera?
I was first started at the AFPA. That was my question as well, right? It's made of wood, and it rates really well. Otherwise, they wouldn't allow this. So you think of the engineered wood products today, where if you hold a lighter to it, you may get scorching on the outside. You know, think of you know, trying to light a log on fire as opposed to just kindling, right? Mm-hmm. So it holds up really well in terms of the tests and everything that have been done. So it's not a fire trap. And some of the composite materials that are used in construction today are also prone. You know, vinyls, plastic, and some of the composites also burn pretty good once you get them going.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. There's been a lot of work done on that side because that's one of the main questions that people have. Another thing that working on is advocating for federal financial assistance, and this is through the lens of this trade crisis that's potentially going to hit us. But also, it also has to deal with the monies that have been collected from the Canadian forest products sector in the U.S. as part of the softwood lumber dispute. So right now, or since 2016, $10 billion in duty deposits have been held by the U.S. Treasury, and that is money that rightfully belongs to Canadian producers. This financial strain weakens mills, limits investment, and threatens jobs. A federal financial backstop could provide much-needed relief, helping mills weather this crisis until a long-term trade resolution is reached. Alberta must push the federal government to act, ensuring our industry gets the support it needs to remain competitive and resilient. Continue to support market diversification. We need to look beyond the US and aggressively pursue new trade opportunities. There's growth markets, there's India, Philippines, China, Japan, Korea. There was a trade delegation to Japan last fall, where the Minister of Forestry as well as AFPA members and the AFPA went to Japan on a trade mission, and I think there may be another one planned. Alberta should be actively marketing its forest products abroad and supporting industry participation in trade missions and international partnerships. And we need a diversified market approach reduces our vulnerability to U.S. trade policies and strengthens long-term resilience. But to do this in trade, especially in Alberta, there's the age-old issue of being landlocked. And if we, there's a lot that we can do with a lot of our natural resources, but we need to ensure that we have reliable transportation for products. That's one reason why the AFPA and our members are active and support the Community Rail Advocacy Alliance. And the voices of participating municipalities have been really valuable in that alliance. So we need to have the trains supporting industry in a lot of these smaller communities, primarily about rail. Implement a forestry manufacturing tax credit. So to remain competitive, we need innovation and investment in value-added forestry products. I think, there's opportunity there for, for example, some of the pulp that we make here in Alberta that is shipped south of the border and converted into different products. It could be paper, it could be tissue, or packaging. Having some of those value-added products manufactured here in Alberta would be great for jobs, great for communities. And a forestry manufacturing tax credit would encourage companies to invest in new technologies and products. This could support initiatives like bioenergy, engineered wood, high-tech forestry solutions, and secure Alberta's place as a leader in sustainable forestry. This tax credit has already been proposed, and now is the time for action. So the forest industry in Alberta is strong. We've been pretty successful in terms of keeping our mills open and keeping them operating, and we've had a lot of success compared to some other jurisdictions. You look at what happened in BC. You look at what happened in Ontario. Ontario used to have over 20, somewhere between 20 and 30 pulp and paper mills. They're now down to 3. Right? They've just been devastated, and we just want to keep Alberta's lumber mills, panel mills, pulp and paper mills all successful in our communities. And what's going on right now really threatens that with what could be going on with trade. If it was to get as bad as what some people think it may, and it's really hard to predict what that is or how long that would carry on for. If this turned into a months-long thing where we're being punished, that could result in job losses, either short-term or long-term here in our communities. So, I'm here to talk about all that, about advocacy, and what we're asking for. So the ask of Woodlands County is that Woodlands County send a letter of support to the Premier, and we would like alongside advocacy to the local member of Parliament as well. So MLAs and anybody else that you see fit. So that's our ask, is a letter of support for the forestry sector. And thank you very much. And if there's any questions.
Thank you, Councilor Prestige.
Through the chair, Dan, with trying to ship globally or sell globally, how does Alberta stack up like with Sweden and these other places that produce a lot of timber?
I don't know if I can answer that right now, but, you know, but they are a competitor, right? So we, in terms of our products going abroad, obviously Japan is a market. There is a J grade that's made here in Alberta that ends up in Japan. So in terms of our share of that market, in terms of wood coming in and wood coming out, I don't know the numbers of that, but I can certainly get those for council.
Thank you.
Yes.
Councillor Kuchen?
Yeah, through the chair to Dan. It's really interesting that you come to this presentation today because we met yesterday. Our regional committee is proposing a conference to start to profile the forestry industry, the energy sector, and agriculture, and how they connect. And some of the conversation was around value added, as you spoke about, and interprovincial barriers that restrict us to a certain degree. One of the things that has been evidenced by the coaching we've been given from our economic development officer is that we really need to increase the profile of the industries here in a positive way and start that communication about how does the what are the social impacts of exactly the things you're talking about when trades change and how we start to mitigate that. And I'm just curious as to how we can engage you in that process as an association to start to help that advocacy, not only at the government level, which is what you're asking, but the conversation within communities to start to be able to do some of the things that we collectively agree are important for our lifestyles here.
Right. Yeah, part of my job, what I do for our members is look for different economic opportunities. So bioeconomy is just kind of the general umbrella for that. So that could include biofuels, bioenergy, carbon capture and storage, those sort of opportunities. In terms of collaborating, there's BDO zones, so kind of understanding what sort of agriculture and forest residuals are located in a certain geographical area certainly helps attract companies that are looking at doing biodiesel and those sort of bioeconomy projects. So I think there could be a strong link between AFPA and municipalities in terms of kind of helping understand what's available. So then you can start going out, we mean all of us, industry, municipalities, AFPA, the province, and going out and attracting investment into Alberta by saying, we have these residuals here and these residuals. With these residuals, we can make X number of gallons of biodiesel or something like that. So.
All right, Councillor Dean, I'll take one more and just watching the clock here. We gotta start moving. Councillor Dean?
Sure, I actually had two, but I think the second one's really, really short, so. Through the chair, can you give us an example of something within the current regulatory environment that is costly and waste time that, you would see a different path for that to take?
At the facility level, it just regulatory overhead, and in terms of what facilities have to do in terms of monitoring and reporting, and also the just access to fiber. So is there a different model that could be used in terms of stumpage fees?
Okay, and then the second question was just concerning that $10 billion. That situation, like you say, here's been around since 2016. And am I correct in saying that it's just tied specifically into the softwood lumber agreement?
Yeah, at this point in time. So So panels, so MDF, plywood, OSB, and those products and pulp and paper aren't part of the softwood lumber. It's softwood lumber dispute, to the best of my knowledge, it's all about the dimensional lumber used in construction. So your 2x4s and 2x6s and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
You had a quick one, Councillor?
Yeah, just a quick question, or just a comment. It's interesting that sometimes when we met, after we met with the Forest Producers Association in up in Casino, we had a conversation with West Fraser, and we've now got the beginnings of a pilot project with Farming Forward and Gateway Research Organization to do some applied research to get rid of the ash problem that they have.
Good.
And so, that's the beginning of those expanded things. So,
Yeah.
thanks to your guys for having that conversation with us.
Yeah, residuals has been it's another cost burden for facilities, and getting the province to recognize that those sort of residuals such as ash and log yard waste can be dealt with differently than the way that we're dealing with them right now.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
And we obviously acknowledge that forest product, anything coming from the lumber industry is crucial to not just the province and trade, but our region specifically. I mean, we have a lot of major players in our backyard here, so I don't see anything out of the ask here that's of the realm of something that we should be doing. So again, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
And
Dan.
with that, we got a couple recommended motions. If Councillor Dean.
Sure, I can do one. I move that Woodlands County Council resolve that the government of Alberta consider steps to support the forest products industry, including more of our forest resources at home, diversifying markets, and implementing a forest manufacturing tax credit to support innovation.
Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, call the question, all in favor? That one's moved. And then Councillor Kukin.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Sorry, I want to hold you for just a second. And on this motion, we do have Danielle Smith listed, but you also mentioned possibly our member of parliament federally. So would you be willing to add on over yourself?
Okay, I make a motion that council direct administration to send a letter of support to the Alberta forest industry to the Honorable Danielle Smith and our member of parliament, Arnold Pearson.
Thank you, Councillor. Any question on the motion?
Just
Councillor Rose?
just one, and I know, excuse me, I know that so we've gone through this mess with oil and gas, unpaid taxes, things like that, COVID, and forestry they were a lot. You guys have managed to plow through everything that they've thrown at you and continue to employ and pay municipal taxes and be great corporate role models, really. And I'm wondering, since we have this assessment model review on the table, where they're looking to reduce the assessment level on oil and gas, especially some of the old assets, and then that's going to result in a tax shift over to some of the forestry industry that we're going to see, because they'll be assessed slightly lower. We'll end up having to move mill rates. I'm wondering if there's any incorporation in this, because that is directly in the province's control, and it's something that has certainly been on our radar, is that tax shift. Is the letter of advocacy going to help with that? Or are you aware of that issue?
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I'm trying to, yeah, I can only say that the, having that shift would be unhelpful,
Right.
right? So, I think I'll just leave it at that. So,
Okay.
if there was a shaft, if there was an increase in taxes for the forest products companies, that wouldn't be helpful. This crisis is all about cash flow.
Might be a separate motion for the Minister of Municipal Affairs. Just while they're working on that issue, to be able to outline that.
Yeah, it's just something we need to keep in mind, so.
Okay, so motion on the floor, any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question, all in favor? And that's carried. There we go. And thank you again for your time,
Thank you very much.
and we'll get these off, and hopefully it helps. We want to do everything we can to keep the mills running in our yard here, so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, I'm a couple minutes behind, but we have accurate assessment here next. Morning. Apologize for
Good morning.
running a little late here.
Well, that's fine. Not gonna lie, I hope we get on time, but
No problems.
So you got everything up there. Whenever you guys are ready, we're ready for you.
so quick introduction. I'm Troy Birtles, your appointed assessor with Accurate Assessment. My left, Sean Barrett is the industrial assessment manager, and his left, Chris Meadows, is my right-hand man, who you will see in the field most often. I think it's important that everybody recognizes him. Are you clicking slides? Okay, perfect. So the purpose of today, obviously, is to just review the year-over-year changes in the assessment. I'll skip through this quickly. You've seen our client map before. We're very proud of it. I do want to stop on this slide and make sure that everyone in the room understands that if you ever have any assessment-related questions, please feel free to reach out. We'd rather you ask if you didn't know, as opposed to give incorrect information. Not saying that you don't know or would give incorrect information, but our phones are always on and doors are always open for any kind of questions. This slide gives a list of staff that might be involved in your assessment. Levi Stewart is the name below Chris Meadows. He is also heavily involved in the inspections in the county, so you may see of him as well. Part of our protocol when we do inspection cycles is to inform staff so that your ratepayers are aware. For example, if somebody sees one of our vehicles in their yard and wonder who the heck is this guy, and they call the county will know right away that it's probably. And if we aren't out, we'll tell you, so that then you might want to do some more review in terms of who's there. Okay. So this is really the meat and potatoes of what we're here to talk about today. Essentially, this breaks down the total assessment into a few different classes and compares year over year. As you can see here, your residential assessment base is increased by 5%. In a few more slides, I'm going to get into more detail with regards to what is new construction growth versus inflationary growth. In regards to these categories, obviously residential is a big portion of your total, as well as your dip and linear, which Sean is going to speak to in a little bit. I should also mention too, if there, at any point you have any questions, just fire them out. We don't need to save them till the end. Next slide basically shows a 5-year history of the same categories. From a market value perspective, it's nice to see that your residential base is increasing each year. It just means our economy is strong. Real estate values are strong. And then this slide is everything all in. That nice steady increase is good to see. This particular slide is a representation of how many properties fall within the change category. So, for example, almost 41% see no change. But that really is all your farmland parcels. It's a regulated assessment. They don't change with the changing markets. So they're going to be the same no matter what. So then if you look at the 1 to 10%, 40% of your properties are falling into that category. So that's basically, the market has grown a little bit, properties are worth a little bit more, so they're falling into that 1 to 10%. And then north of that would be properties like, last year they started to build a home and it was only assessed at half complete. This year it's fully complete. Now the percentage is not just reflective of market value, it's reflecting physical change at the property. Next slide, I show the same idea in dollars. Again, the no change category is all your farmland parcels, and north of that is market and new construction. Couple of quick stats here. New roll numbers, new parcels on the residential, non-residential side with 32 and 61 development permits. Pretty consistent throughout the last 5 years. Okay, here's some growth and inflation information. From a residential perspective, we only had 1.3% growth due to new construction. And then 3.5% of our total increase on the residential side is due to inflation. So if you think about what that means, was your property worth more as of July 2024 than it was July 2023? A little bit. That's the 3.5%, basically. That's in general across the entire municipality. Obviously, we have different ranges. Councilor Birtles?
Sorry, I just, am I getting these columns mixed up? Because I'm looking at new construction in 2024 is the 3.1%, and the market change is 0.6% in 2024.
Did I go backwards?
I just want to be
I'm
clear
sorry.
because we've had this discussion before, and I just want to be really clear on what's what. So
I did.
0.6 is inflation, and
That's right.
3.1 is it's a new build, and there may be some new infrastructure that goes along with that for us to look after.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. My bad. Apologies.
Councilor Wilhelm, your hand was up too.
Yeah, sorry, I was just seeing 3.5 and 1.6. I wasn't sure where you were getting 3.1 and 0.6, but it's the next slide on. So we're at the yeah.
Oh, I'm one ahead, sorry.
They both say overview.
Yeah, yes.
And
So the first one is residential and the second one is non-residential, so that would be trucking shops, welding businesses, the airport subdivision, things like that on the non-res side. And overall from growth, overall the non-res as compared to the residential is a small part of the total, excluding of course designated industrial property and linear assessment. And then the next slide kind of breaks this down into different areas of the municipality. So growth and inflation obviously are highlighted, are shown on the right columns there. It's pretty consistent in terms of percentage. Nothing is jumping out in that shows a great shift between different areas of the municipality. At the bottom shows the 1.3% in growth versus the 4% total inflation. Does that help answer your question, Councilor Burrows?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Councilor Dean?
Through the chair to Troy, looking at that inflation chart there, I see we have a $9 million inflation, which equates to 6.8% in the Fortisson-Boyne Goose Lake area.
Yeah.
Is that largely because properties are being purchased and the market is going up?
The inflation side is strictly 100% due to change in market, change in sale price. Yeah.
Thanks.
And I'll touch a bit more on that on the next slide as well.
Councilor Wilhelm, if you get your hand up there too.
I'm just trying to square the numbers in my head. If we're looking at like residential growth and residential inflation 2024 for both of them on the previous slides, it looks like it's opposite on this main overview though. It shows higher inflationary growth than it did inflationary increase than it is growth increase, but on the previous two charts, new construction was significantly higher than inflation.
Construction growth.
So I'm just trying to understand. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the graphs?
Yes, they're backwards, that's why. So the growth and inflation in the total are backwards. The inflation is higher than growth, but on two charts, this slide, it's saying that growth is higher. It's not. Inflation is in the 3.5%.
So our assessment is increases mostly around inflation,
Yes.
not around new growth.
That's
Okay.
right.
Those two things weren't making sense on these charts, so.
And so as it relates to inflation, this chart here tells us why or how come we have to increase the assessments by that much. It's all tied to sales. So in the same areas of the municipality, I give you some stats here regarding vacant and improved sales. An improved sale is essentially a piece of land that has a building on it. And as we all know, the province tells us that our median assessment to sales ratio, which we need to divide the assessment by the sale price, that ratio has to be between 95 and 105%. That doesn't mean all sales. If we were to do that, we'd have to literally make the assessment the same as the sale price, and we just can't do that in a mass appraisal application. But the median needs to fall between 95 and 105. So as you can see, in all of these cases, that's met. And if we didn't have that 3.5–4% increase in the inflationary side, we simply would be under assessing the properties, and the province would say, no good, you have to redo it. So that's how the assessments in Alberta follow market, is basically always due to those sales. And then, of course, any other new assessment we have is from when somebody builds a new house or shop or whatever the case is. That's on the growth, on the real growth side. As far as our reinspection areas go, we break down the municipality into 5 different areas, and we visit every property within that area in that given year. That doesn't mean we knock on the door and request to do an interior walkthrough of the property. That's very intrusive. However, we'll pull up to the property, we have the assessment records with us, we can see that the house and attached garage is there, there's no other buildings, we already have basement development assessed or whatever the case may be, we move on to the next one. Next one, oh, they've got a new building there that we don't have any record of. We'll go and interview the property owner and collect the information required to add that to the assessment. That's the purpose of this reinspection area. In addition to that, whenever there are permits pulled for whatever reason, we will go, doesn't matter where in the municipality it is, we'll go and visit those properties, as well as anything that might have come up throughout the year that we think needs to be followed up on. For example, property is assessed at $400,000 and it sells for $550,000. Well, what are we missing? Probably a building or something, so we'll flag that for a review to make sure that the assessment is right. And it might just be a case that the sale isn't an arm's length transaction. Maybe the father sold it to his brother or to his son, I should say, and they did some internal paperwork and it actually transferred for $1. If that's the case, there's no weight, there's no meaning to that sale price, we just kick it out, don't use it. So as always, we are, our phones are always on, doors are always open. We encourage any questions from both council, admin, and county ratepayers. There is, as we all know, a 60-day period after the assessment notices are mailed where ratepayers have the ability to question or contest the assessment if they have any issues. We highly encourage the first step to be to contact the county. The county will collect their information and reasons for their inquiry and pass it on to us, and we'll give them a call, follow up with them. As noted, our reinspection cycle this year will be in the Blue Ridge Goose Lake area. And market is our job, that's what we do. We will be following the market and understanding how it will impact the assessments moving forward. Any other questions for me before I pass it on to Sean?
No. So, Councilor Birtles?
Sorry, actually, you know what, I'm skipping too far ahead here, so, no.
If you're skipping ahead, Sean will have some answers for you for sure.
Oh, okay.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Sean Barrett. I'm the industrial manager at Accurate Assessment Group. This is the rest of our industrial assessment team. So if there is ever industrial questions or industrial property types within the municipality where Troy's team needs assistance, we are always there to help out. Primarily, we assess designated industrial property on behalf of the province of Alberta. We do not do that for Woodlands County. We do that for some other jurisdictions in the province. However, we do have an understanding of the oil and gas side, the linear property assessments as well. We do facilitate the inspection and valuation of some non-designated industrial type properties in the municipality. If you go to the next slide, please. This would include, one of the larger ones is in Windfall, Standard General gravel facility. So there are some sawmills, etc. So there are some properties that are not designated by the Alberta Energy Regulator or the Canadian Energy Regulator or the Alberta Utilities Commission that we assess. Next slide, please. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of some of the numbers. So as I mentioned, Accurate does not facilitate the linear property assessment. That is done by Alberta Municipal Affairs for all municipalities within the province of Alberta. As council and administration may be aware, over the previous tax years, there were some incentives brought in by the provincial government. There was an attempt at a previous assessment model review that never got to the finish line. So instead of implementing that, they implemented some tax incentives, the largest and most impactful being the well and pipeline property tax holiday, meaning any new wells or pipelines constructed over 3 years were assessed, but they were not taxable, considered taxable at that time. They are now, those amounts or those properties are now included in municipalities' assessments. Within Woodlands County, there was 31 million of assessment that was previously unassessed that is now in your linear assessment total. So in Troy's slide, I believe it was, what was the percentage, Troy, that linear went up? I think it was 7%?
Yes.
Yeah, so it went up by 55 million. Of that 55 million, 31 million, or approximately that much, was due to the tax holiday. So if those properties were still under the tax holiday, your linear would only have gone up by 25 million, but because those properties now become assessable and taxable, they are included in that total of the 55 million. Within the tax incentives that got implemented a couple of years ago, there were two additional, well, there were some other ones, the cancellation of the well drilling equipment tax, but there was also two additional ones that we have up on the screen there. And that is, there was a 35% assessment reduction for shallow gas wells and annual additional depreciation adjustments for lower producing wells. As I understand, those are still in place today, and they are still within the formulas of calculating linear property assessments. However, as I stated, the most impactful to most municipalities in the province is definitely the well and pipeline tax holiday. Next slide, please. So where are we now? We're at another attempt at an assessment model review of regulated property. So designated industrial property includes linear property, wells, pipelines, railway, telecommunications. It also includes machinery and equipment, designated industrial property, which is the surface improvements. So if you're at a well site and there's a separator package there, or if you're at a compressor station, those surface improvements, those machinery and equipment that's contained there is also a regulated standard in Alberta. So what this model review is attempting to review the guidelines and the rates and the rules surrounding how we assess regulated property. Right now, we are in stage 2. Stage 2 does a couple things. One is review the annual assessment year modifier and the methodology and how those are created. Previously, the assessment year modifiers were fairly, I would say, contentious in the way that they were potentially created. It wasn't the most transparent approach, and it was difficult for both ratepayers and municipalities to estimate what these assessment year modifiers might be from year to year. My understanding is that the new methodology will be a more transparent approach, and it will use some publicly available information from Statistics Canada, so that once this methodology is finalized, it will be easier for, as I said, both municipalities and ratepayers to potentially forecast what these modifiers may be. And what an assessment year modifier is, it basically works like a cost index on a rate. The rates might be from one year, but as we move on to next assessment years, those rates have to be indexed to the current value. So assessment year modifiers have a direct impact on regulated assessment. So that's why it's part of this stage 2, the foundational policies. Where we're at right now in stage 2 is we are reviewing something called the Construction Cost Reporting Guide, or in short, we call it CCRG. So many stakeholders have been invited to this part of consultation. Myself and Ray Fortin, we are representatives of the Alberta Assessors Association as subject matter experts. So we are in the room. There's other municipal stakeholders in the room, such as the RMA, AB Munis, and of course there's many industry associations. What's happening now is the government is consulting with us. They're taking all of this information, they're digesting it, but ultimately there's going to have to be some decisions made, and then eventually a new CCRG will have to be drafted. The reason why the CCRG is foundational is because it basically sets the rules in how we calculate the rates for regulated property. So if we go to the next slide, please. Once the CCRG is finalized, then this assessment model review can move on to the next stages, where the intent is to actually look at each industry type, such as railway and electric power, machinery and equipment, wells and pipelines, and review those rates and the methodologies in how these assessments are created, but using the CCRG, because the CCRG guides us in what we're allowed to do in creating these rates in Alberta. So we're not there yet. Stage 2, I believe, was supposed to be completed already, but it's almost into April and we're still working on CCRG. So the model review is a little bit behind at the current time. Municipalities and ratepayers, of course, are always interested in what the impacts might be when we're talking about regulated property. I don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately, and the impact analysis of this model review won't be done until we're anticipating 2027, or the government says 2028. So at that time, stakeholders will have the ability to review the impacts, and we'll see where the model review moves from there. Next slide, please. So with that, if there's any questions for either Troy or myself, we are open.
Okay, any further questions here? Councilor Bros?
So, thanks through the chair. I just wanted to go to this assessment model review idea. When they're looking at bringing this in, so telecommunications, cable, railway, electric power, and then group two, they go to machinery and equipment, pipeline, wells. Are they looking at actually changing that assessment and saying, okay, we've done that assessment in that period of time, so that's your new assessment for that group? And then you move on to the next group? Or are they looking at doing all these things and at the end of the review process saying, okay, this is your whole assessment review and how, because one is gonna tip down, the other's gonna tip up, or maybe they'll all tip down, I don't know. But I guess my concern is that this is a little like a four-sided seesaw, the way that they've got it. So at the municipal revenue generation, is there a significant tax shift that's gonna happen, and how are they gonna implement this? Is it piecemeal, or is it all at once?
That's a very good question. What has been communicated to myself thus far is that it will be a holistic review, and then instead of being implemented for each property type individually, so for example, if say railway was completed, instead of implementing the changes to railway, as Councillor Burrows mentioned, if you implement to one industry segment or one property type, there could be potential shifts, tax assessment shifts and tax shifts. So my understanding from the communications thus far is that this is going to be a holistic review, and then the impacts reviewed in 2028, and then it would be implemented all at the same time for all property types.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Kuchen?
Yeah, through the chair too. This is just from a conversation we had with our CAO. We have a lot of farmland in our area that there is no, the people aren't residents in our community. And I'm just wondering, is there an ability for a municipality to create a tax class for that? Because a lot of the money that's paid on that farmland doesn't even cover the maintenance costs of the infrastructure there. So I'm just curious, as we get into this conversation, if there's some possibilities there.
The Municipal Government Act allows municipalities to have certain subclasses of residential property. You also have the ability to have a separate farmland class, but not a class within farmland. So in other words, you wouldn't be able to tax a Woodlands County farmland owner at one rate and a non-Woodlands County farmland owner at another rate. And as far as the assessment goes, farmland is another regulated assessment. It has nothing to do with market value at all. And I don't even believe that it's included in the regulated assessment model review. To put it into context, a quarter of farmland in the county might be worth, depending on the land, 200, 250, 300, let's say, and it's literally assessed at $25,000. Yeah. So from a market value perspective, it is far less taxed on farmland than non-farmland. But if I understand your question correctly, you want to know if you can tax two farmland parcels separately?
Yeah.
I don't believe you have the ability to do that.
Okay, and just looking at time here, if we have any further, if not, Councilor Burrows?
Sorry, I just had one. So given that we have a tax committee meeting coming up as well, and we're actually looking at these numbers for market change versus new growth, can we get a corrected version of this with the grids, just so that we are 100% accurate? Because it's confusing enough going through this, and then if they're shifted, we'll really get messed up. But I just wanted to make sure that we get a corrected version of this for that specific conversation.
Okay, and with Councilor Williams?
I can make a motion that council receive the presentation from accurate assessment as information.
Thank you, Councilor. Motion on the floor. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll definitely be in touch, so. And our next one there, just checking with Sheldon, is he still available, or I know we're running late in this time.
We just went out on the phone.
I do apologize, we are running a little behind here in our,
Problem, that was really interesting.
apologize for making you wait there. I'm sorry, I know your time is also important.
It's all good. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Council. Senior leader.
Today we have Inspector Choma here to give us a breakdown of 2024 year report for CPO County.
First off, I'd like to apologize to all of you for it being so late. It's just been extremely busy with the shift and so forth, but we're here to present it. So in 2024, if you flip over to the first page, total incidents in 2024 was 164 incidents reported to us. Total revenue in 2024 was 38,000, roughly. Approximately half of that goes to government. We wrote 44 warnings to the 164 citations, with the warnings totaling about $9,000. So from direction from council, you wanted us to be more lenient with your ratepayers or whoever's coming through, give some warnings, give the ones that deserve a ticket. We have done that for you. Again, that is your decision on what you want to do for 2025, if you want us to step it up or vice versa. So if you look at the next page, the top citation types, exceeding speed limit, prescribed on a highway was 95 citations given out. Operating motor vehicle without insurance was roughly 19. Dogs at large, 9. Failed to provide PO with operator's license, so they're driving without an operator's license or an expired one, 5. Failed to provide PO with registration, another 5. Exceeding speed limit under construction repair or construction zone, 4. And then again, just documentation, 4 more. So the little breakdown on the bottom, you can see animal control calls, you can see, or incident types, the dog bylaw, traffic act, and so forth. So then we also broke down from Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4 of the incidences. So it just shows you that in Q3 and Q4 we had 17, so they kind of stepped up in the incidences out there for call wise. And I think the reasoning for that was our complaint line that we'll make you aware of. I apologize again that was not communicated to council, but we do have a 24-hour complaint line that is being utilized by your residents today. Again, just another chart, so you can see the method of complaints. So admin directive would be coming from council or your wonderful system that we have. Our dispatch, you can see we've started to receive calls from our dispatch line, which is 27, email 17, observed by officer 4, and so forth and so forth. By our reporting, our busiest day in Woodlands County is a Wednesday, and which is funny, and it's around 1 p.m. in the afternoon.
Oh, those counselors leaving this meeting.
So in this Q4 report, we did some proactive enforcement that I want to bring to your attention. We conducted patrols in Schumann Lake on the off season as well as the Blue Ridge Rec area, Hardluck Canyon. We engaged with the public in various events throughout the year. Proactive traffic enforcement on 658, because that seems to be an issue from you guys as well, in the sense of the sawmill. Working with the partners with law enforcement agencies on rural crime reduction and prevention. So I'm very proud to say that we have a team out, which I was disappointed to hear yesterday that they have disassembled their team until fall, but we work very closely with the RCMP with problem properties throughout Woodlands County, Lac-Sainte County. and try to rectify getting the individuals removed or going on there and recovering different items that are not theirs. So we've worked extremely close with them. We've patrolled subdivisions in dense populated areas, routinely patrols around Whitecourt, Woodlands Airport, which was requested by you guys to make a presence out there. Infrastructure protection, when you guys put on road bans, we've been out there stopping trucks to make sure they're abiding by the rules and regulations and they're not overweight. Routine patrols to your transfer stations and regional landfill, making sure people have secure loads and so forth. And aiding in emergency response. So that could be Whitecourt Fire on Highway 43 or on a secondary highway, or Woodlands County Fire as well, or structure fires and vice versa. Any questions so far? No?
Councilor Cluden?
Yeah, just on, you know, I'm not 100% aware of exactly how our contract is, you know, how that's played out and what the potential is. But we've had some real issues on Range Road 64 there, just off Forest Creek Road, with one resident there. And I know this winter, we actually had some stray dogs that were left, and they ended up at our place, and we called into your office to see if they could be placed. We knew where they came from. And it ended up we couldn't get a hold of anybody, so we found a way to place those dogs and rehome them ourselves. And I'm just curious, it's been an ongoing problem for the last probably 2-3 years, stray animals. It's an unbelievable mess there. And, you know, there needs to be something done that we get that problem solved. And I'm not sure how to do that.
So, I mean, it's not only a problem with Woodlands County, it's everywhere in Alberta. To be honest with you, all the rescue shelters are extremely full. You know, kenneling facilities and so forth are tough to get, and the reason for it is because we'll just talk about dogs right now, but with dogs, a non-purebred dog we keep for 3 days, a purebred dog is 10 days. Of course, we keep them longer, we don't dispatch any kind of dogs or euthanized dogs, I'll make that clear. But once those days are up, I mean, yes, we could have a kennel facility and we could take care of them for that long. The question is, how do we, if they're not claimed, how do we get rid of these dogs to a rescue society? So it's a struggle everywhere, not only here, but Woodlands County, or with Lac-Saint-Anne County. We're working closely with a new vet out in Onaway area. We've, you know, trying to make contact with more rescue societies that will help us out. We've touched base with Parkland County Kennel as well, and they're extremely full and having the same difficulties. So I know it's throughout the province. For the dogs that we catch out here, for instance, the ones that you were talking about probably went to Whitecourt Vet. No?
No, we actually, we took them and found a home for them ourselves because we couldn't get hold of anybody.
So I'm, like I said, when something like that comes about, I would like you to reach out to Sheldon or Matthew.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because we do have the 24-hour complaint line. Yes, we're not on 24 hours, but those calls should be handled appropriately.
Yeah.
So Whitecourt Veterinarian is awesome to deal with. They're very honest with you. They accept dogs all the time. You know, they have rescue societies to watch them. They have people that take them to watch them when they're not there, so forth and so forth, until they find someone to adopt them. They've worked with us extremely well. So it's kind of shocking that you're telling me that, and again, I apologize. If the contact was made through our dispatch center, there would have been a file to follow up on that, and there should be no excuse that those dogs hadn't been taken care of at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions on that?
No, I think we're going to continue.
Okay. All right, so there's a few challenges that we face throughout Woodlands County that I wanted to bring to council's attention. And, you know, we're finding it difficult on a lot of these to, I guess, write tickets or to enforce. So I'm asking that council gives us some direction today in a sense, and a letter maybe from the CAO or yourselves requesting that we get a little bit more authorities in Woodlands County under the provincial statutes. And what would be the strays animals Act. And the reason for this is we've been dealing with a lot of livestock, especially out in Fort Assiniboine area. There's cows or horses on people's property, and we do not have a bylaw to accommodate that here, nor do we have the power to deal with. So my officers have been dealing with it best as they possibly can. But if we had the Strays Animals Act, and I mean, it would come on a request from a letter to to recommend that we do get this for the peace officers to enforce in your areas. We would then submit it to the Solicitor General to get that added to our appointments, and hopefully they approve it at that point. The other one would be the wildfire prevention and enforcement. Due to the fact that we had all the wildfires and so forth, we would like to try to get the Forest Protection Act out here so we could actually enforce the quads that are on those trails that shouldn't be on when there's a complete fire ban or a quad ban. If they're having campfires, if they're squatting on there, we can deal with it appropriately through the provincial or the province instead of doing some sort of bylaw or vice versa. So that would give us a little bit more grounds to enforce, especially in the Timu area where we have May Long Weekend coming, and we usually have an operation with the RCMP and Alberta Conservation. But it gives us a little bit more authority to go through those trails with our own equipment, which is off-highway vehicles, and enforce it properly the way it should be enforced. The other one would be the Alberta Public Land Act. Now, we know we have several people squatting on people's land, and again, off-highway vehicle would fall underneath that as well. We would like to get that on our appointment as well to accommodate your municipality as well. Again, I kind of went quickly through that. If you want to take a quick read, you can. Granting these additional authorities would strengthen partnership with the RCMP, Fish and Wildlife, and Forestries, would allow faster response times and more efficient enforcement throughout those areas. At that point, I think this is concluding our presentation for our quarterly or our year-end report. I'm open to questions on those acts that are asking for a request or a letter requesting that we do get those powers to enforce in Williams County. Lac-Saint Anne County don't have none of these forestry protection areas, so it's a little bit different. And the province is pretty sticky in giving this stuff out unless we have the proper, I guess, letters coming from you guys and requesting it.
Hey, Councillor Coogan.
Yeah, through the chair too. I didn't realize that Williams County did not have a livestock bylaw. So now I understand, the challenge that you guys have, because that has to be something that we take care of, and then it makes it easier for you guys to enforce.
With the livestock bylaw, the other struggles we have is we need to, it's not even a kennel facility, right? So if we actually get a wrangler out there, which we've had out here, go out there and round up these cows or these horses, we need a place for them to get loaded, so they'll load them off the property or that they're not supposed to be on or on the road. We need somewhere to take them. So again, we're running into the same situations, but what this allows us to do is actually write some hefty fines, and make sure they, right now they think, oh, well, if they get out, they eat the neighbor's hay, who cares, right? I mean, what are they gonna do? Right? But it poses a problem unless the farmer actually goes after them civilly, but this gives us some teeth to actually do something about it.
And I don't believe that any of these asks are outrageous. I mean, some of these, like the stray animal complaints with livestock, is something that I believe we should have. And given our situation in the forest protective zone, I feel if anything we can do to help that out would definitely be beneficial. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment on the wildfire prevention because north of Fort Assiniboine, I support this completely because we get a lot of concerned residents that see fires during fire bans, and there's really no avenue. RCMP a lot of times don't go out to it, so it might be a good catch-all because they don't really want their properties burnt by somebody camping in the bush with a fire. So we see tons of that up in the Sandhills. So it's pretty good idea.
I mean, regarding that, with our complaint line, when it comes to fire, I mean, all of my officers as well as the fire departments are taking this extremely serious. We don't need to have, the same thing what happened 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. So when it comes to smoke investigations or any kind of open fire complaints or vice versa, they're taken serious and we respond immediately. We've also done this with Lac-Saint Anne County. So, for instance, if there's a fire and we know it's an open fire and fire can't attend to it for smoke investigation, again, a simple call to our dispatch or Sheldon gives us a call, we will head out there immediately to try to mitigate the problem before it gets out of control.
Councillor Wilhelm?
Through the chair, I believe Dustin Gendrick is primarily our CPO in the area.
Dustin Gendrick lives in Whitecourt, so he's the closest, yes. So he is my prime contact here to get things done here as well. He has also been promoted to sergeant, so he's helping me in a lot of things, which is lightening my load a lot. But yes.
I just wanted to give props to him. I've had multiple situations this year where something has come up with a resident and this CPO group had to take care of it. He's very professional. He takes care of it very well. He takes the load off my shoulders because he handles it so well. So I just wanted to give him props.
Well, thank you very much. He is a valued employee for sure.
Councillor Burrows?
Yeah, so thanks through the chair. I just wanted to get the mechanism of this right, because I'm thinking this needs to go to governance and priorities. The Stray Animals Act is an act that would allow the municipality to create the bylaw. So that would be the municipal side, and then the other two are provincial.
No, so the Stray Animals Act right now, with Strays Animals Act, we actually have the RCMP have it, of course. They never want to deal with it. But it's the brand inspectors, right? So when you go to an auction to buy a horse or vice versa, the brand inspectors have the authority under the Strays Animals Act to seize those animals, take them to an auction yard. That person that has the animals that we've just seized or taken off the road to the auction mart, they have to claim them. They also get fined from the Strays Animals Act and have to pay for the housing and everything else at the auction yard. If they're not claimed, then of course they go up for auction. So the problem with brand inspectors is you can never get a hold of one. They always want us as peace officers to have those animals in a confined space or wrangled up somehow. We as peace officers don't have horses to do so, so we have to hire wranglers and we have to bring out fences and so forth. If we're doing that anyway for the brand inspector, why not reap the benefits and actually get it solved faster than having a brand inspector come out? The head brand inspector for all brand inspectors in Alberta is actually out of Red Deer area. So a lot of our brand inspectors out here, which we have two local ones, one is out in knee surgery right now, but next to impossible to get any action taken by the brand inspector. So we struggle all the time throughout Lac-Saint-Anne County as well as here to deal with these animals. When we could actually just get a wrangler out, wrangle them up, throw them in a trailer, all those expenses and costs will go to the animal owner. So it's very simple to deal with, as well as the citations and so forth.
Okay.
So it's a provincial statute, so it wouldn't be a bylaw. That's permission from the
Okay,
province.
you'd use the word bylaw at some point.
It's because we don't have a large animal bylaw in here or an animal control bylaw for Woodlands County for livestock or any kind of horses.
Okay, so back to, is this a municipal statute that we're looking at creating it?
I think the question is...
Provincial statute.
Just for clarity, thank you. You can do it two ways. So you can do an animal control bylaw that regulates the responsibilities. It also gives you, depending how your bylaw is written, the ability to just throw those costs on the tax roll, or you can go through the Stray Animals Act and just keep it strictly at a provincial level. So either option is available. There's some perks to going the bylaw route, but there's also some perks to going the Stray Animals Act route. So if you'd like, we can go and provide you at GMP the benefits and the cons of both options for the stray animals ones. The other two, I think, are fairly straightforward and regulatory, and we can request those acts be covered under peace officers.
Mr. Chair and Council, the reasoning for the issue we will have with the bylaw is finding the actual owner of those cattle. So a lot of cattle organizations, right, to penalize them or vice versa, they're either grazing them on someone else's property and they don't live in the area, they live in another county. That poses an issue just to bring up with the bylaw to find that person, because all I could go by then is take those to the auction mart, and hopefully they're branded or some sort of identification that the brand inspector would provide information on. If not, again, those costs to recoup that would be very difficult as well, because cattle farmers don't have their own cattle on their own property, they lease a lot of land usually. So a lot of times those fences on those leased land are not so good and they're out because it is leased land and the fences are no good. On their own property, they have no issues, 95% of the time.
Okay, Councillor Coogan?
Yeah, through the chair, and one of the things that we do know is that a lot of the traceability is through RFID now, and there's a lot less branded cattle than there have been, and I think that poses a problem because some of the people that have these stray animals don't have RFID tags in them because they haven't followed the rules in the first place. And then secondly is they possibly don't have a brand, so that leaves you guys in kind of a limbo. You have to dispose of them because there's really no owner.
Well, what we're finding too, especially with cattle, is many farmers don't want us to know how many cattle they have.
Really?
You know, and it's due to wealth or whatever it is, I can't answer that, but
Yeah.
they just don't want people to know. Whether it's 400 head, 100 head, 50 head.
Okay, any final questions here before we move on? Councillor Prestige?
Through the chair to Dallas. I would like to commend you and your officers. In Blue Ridge, the last couple of years, we've had a very hard time with certain individuals that are squatting, just, they're into drugs and everything. And your hands are tied quite a bit on what you can do with these people. But Dustin, for instance, has worked very hard trying to get this resolved, and I think we just did. Those individuals have moved out of town.
Finally, because they moved once and then we were on them again really, like just recently, last week, and then we put some pressure on them and hopefully they're gone, yeah.
Yeah, so it has worked.
Excellent, I'm glad to hear that.
Okay, any final comments? Well, I'd like to thank you again for your time. Thank you for the presentation. You guys are doing a fantastic job in the county here, and we're glad to be able to partner with Lexington and be able to offer this. So,
Looking forward to work closer, and I mean, we're working on development stuff as well with your development department, so it's been a pleasure and we enjoy being here, to be honest with you, and thank you for having me.
yeah, and we'll see what we can do on those sticking points through council and get the I guess the right applications kind of put forth to the province and those to be able to help you guys out in your enforcement. So we'll do what we can on our end.
Excellent, just need a letter of recommendation for those.
Councillor Williams?
You wanna make, like, two motions, one to accept it as, information, and one to take some of this to GMP, is that what we're looking for?
Probably be worthwhile.
Cause the only reason I ask is,
Yeah.
the Alberta Public Lands one, I think there's value to bring that to the GMP as well, cause wouldn't wanna get rid of all backcountry camping, but I'd like to see what that looks like, if it's a duration or whatever too, so I wouldn't mind both of those going. The wildfire one I think is pretty cut and dry, but the stray animals and Alberta Public Lands Act, so I could make a motion to take the stray animal complaints and Alberta Public Lands Act, both to a GMP meeting.
Okay, is that a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, motion on the floor to bring those two to future GMP meeting for conversation. Any discussion on that motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? That one's carried. And if somebody wants to make a motion to accept for information, Councillor Coogan?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that council receive the enforcement updates for information as well.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. And again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more delegation here this morning. You are welcome to come up to the table.
Okay. That was very interesting.
Just wait a minute for Matthew to come back.
Okay.
We get going, I guess. While we're waiting for him to do a quick round the table here, if you want to start going, just so you know who you got here.
Joan Slutwig, Community Services Director.
Yeah. Andrew World, Interim Director of Corporate Services.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Jeremy, Whitecourt East. Peter Kilkin, Premium River, Goose Lake.
Dave Cush, Councillor for Ensemble and the Reeve.
Okay.
John Burrows, Whitecourt West.
Okay.
Bruce Prestige, Blue Ridge, Division 5.
Okay.
Devin Williams, Councillor for Port Assiniboine, Timmins.
And Matthew Ferris is our CAO. We just gotta wait for him to step back in, and we'll continue the meeting.
Thanks for being so patient.
Oh, I actually really enjoyed it. I was thinking, boy, there's lots of information here. Yeah, really interesting.
Comes back, just like, okay,
My cousins in the Medicine Hat area.
an hour past.
I suggested to my wife that we get ahead of this storm and leave after this
Been
meeting.
here a long time now, Jill.
Sounds like that's what's
Oh,
happening.
yeah. 36 years.
Yeah, I gotta.
Yeah. I think that's right. Couldn't hear ever since I lived in Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, eh? Yeah.
And getting old.
Calling for freezing
Oh,
rain tonight.
you know what, we all are.
And then
It's
snow.
just,
Yeah.
you just
Oh,
don't
well.
want to stop. Just keep going.
Just makes you feel a little bit
was
more
thinking I
alive
should
when you're
put this
sliding
in
down the
bigger
road at
print.
60 miles an hour sideways.
Yeah.
Did you see we got a big weather advisory?
Yeah.
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 I'm supposed to go to Smoky Lake tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm supposed to go to St. Paul on Friday, so it's gonna be interesting.
What have you been doing with your public lands?
I gotta say, I've passed so many
Right now, we're
photo
with
drives
Courtney
that
Hughes
car.
now.
Okay.
So we've just been switched over to her.
As long as it doesn't get
Is she
hung up,
local?
you're good.
She's
You're
out of
probably
Grand Prairie.
like my
So,
nephew.
yeah.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah.
You gotta
They've just-
keep her
they've given
going
her the
really
file
fast and
because
straight.
When they opened up the trails, app, and students had an influx of applications, so they're just a little bit overwhelmed to stay on track.
Dave, are we
She's
taking a break?
amazing. She's
As soon as she's done.
Have you had any conversation with the local guys?
Yeah, we have, we've talked, I've talked to Bruce Van House a few times, yeah, and Bert Roach.
Yeah.
I started with Bert, actually.
Okay.
And he was going in the right direction, then Bruce, and then
Then Courtney.
up the hill. Well, actually, from there on to Norbert.
Okay.
And, yeah, and then he's put it over to Courtney, so, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we've had quite a bit happening.
Check and see if he's on the way back. Procedurally, we need to have him in the rooms.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir. Quick presentation. My apologies, guys. I left. I didn't think you needed me for this item. Sorry.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Okay, my name is Aileen Ward, and I'm the president of the Whitecourt Horse Club. We formed the club a couple of years ago, and the reason we did so is we'd ridden for years on the mountain, going back to 1985 and such, and it was beautiful riding up there. And as OHVs became more popular, they seemed to take over the area. It's a very sensitive area up there, and the trails became impassable for horses to ride, and that, as a matter of fact, it became impassable for OHVs to go up there too. They just kept going around and around until it was all mud. So that kind of got rid of the main riding area for horses in our area, and since then we've been looking for other areas that could be a possibility without having to haul our horses too far. So we've looked at partnering with the Trailblazers, and of course they said that their trails were mostly bogs in the spring and the summer and the winter, so, or before winter, fall. That wouldn't work for us. We tried looking at the trails across from the Ag Society that were put in, but there's a lot of bridges. Drayton Valley, from experience of riding in Drayton Valley, that's not a good idea. Bridges and dampness are really dangerous for horses, lots of slipping on the bridges, and it's lots to maintain. So we've kept looking ever since then, and a group of people that have ridden here for, as I said, decades, they mentioned the Sandhills Plus out here wasn't being used anymore and they were riding there. It's sand trails, so horses don't need shoes to ride in there. The area when we first started riding there, our group, we noticed that there was a lot of garbage in there, that there was lots of parties being held by the youth in one area, and dead animal carcasses laying around and things like that, vehicles parking on the trails, you know, out that way. So we talked to Bert Roach, and he thought it would be a really good idea for us to pursue this idea of becoming trail masters. The province had just opened up this plan where you could apply to become a trail master of a certain area. And what that does is the province still has the area. We're not to do any big upgrades on the area. We have to go through the province for it. But as trail masters, we keep the trails clean, we make sure that the area is good, and we apply for grants through them if we want to put in a staging area or campgrounds or whatever we need to do. That's all provided by the province. In return, we can't make a charge for anybody using that area. It's open to anybody in the province to come, or anybody to come and camp there once the sites are put in and use the area, so it will increase tourism to the area, bringing people in. And it's just the perfect area for horses. What we found riding out there the last few years is the trails with the quads are like this. It's called whoops or whatever. I've just learned that term. So it's really hard on the horses to ride in there. So we don't want to really, and we don't want to share the trails with the OHVs because of that. It is not open to motorized vehicles to start off with. That's something that isn't allowed in there, no motorized vehicles. But they are. It's very well used by motorized vehicles. But we're hoping with signage and taking over responsibility of the area and education that people stop dumping garbage in there, that people quit hunting and stripping their animals in there and leaving the remains behind, that we can get a fairly nice spot for our horses to ride in that isn't too far away. We're aware of the Sandhills, Fort Assiniboine Sandhills. We've ridden there for years and years. But there's no overnight camping unless you go to Warringos to camp overnight. The central area, staging area, is not to have camping. So this is a spot we are looking to have camping at. We're just in the process of really developing what it is we want to see, but we're looking for 3 reserved spots and maybe 3 as you come spots for camping, and then a staging area. And yeah, that's kind of what we're looking for. And with everything moving forward, we have been approached by the Whitecourt Fish and Game Association to see if they could partner with us or collaborate with us. And their goals seem to be quite similar to ours, which is preserve the area. You know, we don't want to damage any part of the area. There may be 3 bridges that we will put in so that people aren't going down into the creeks to ride across. But we don't want to damage the area at all. We want to preserve the area.
I got looking at the request here, somebody else, I've been riding up in Fort Assiniboine all the time, the trails there, having a set trails where you can go either horseback or walk and keep away from the OHVs. It's not just, you know, it protects the trails, it's also for people's safety.
Yes.
Not that everybody on an OHV when coming across a horse is disrespectful and just goes, but there's a lot of people that don't feel understand the sensitivity to some of the animals. And it can cause kind of negative effects for everybody that's there. So my question I have is, and don't really see it in here, is how big of a trail system are you possibly looking at?
So right now we're using all the trails that were designated, are currently designated by the cross country ski club that was in there a number of years ago. We're going to use their trails, they're already designated, and then we've got looking at a few other trails to put in there that will need designation. So I can't say for sure just yet. What we can do is come back with a map. We have mapped all the trails that are in there, and we're just about done mapping our proposed trails. And actually we're in touch with Courtney Hughes now at Grand Prairie. She's going to be our land specialist. It's going to take us through the rest of this process. And she's going to be coming out to ride in the spring and start looking at these trails and making sure that they're all
Well, yeah,
Perfect.
and, you know, it doesn't have to come to a meeting or anything. I would be interested to see, you know, even if you have it in an email.
We will definitely keep you
That'd be
posted,
great.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
I seen Councillor Prestige and then,
Through the chair, I know where the area is, but I'm not familiar what's allowed there and what's not allowed there. You're saying that there is no motorized vehicles, is
That's
that
right.
provincial?
That's provincial, yeah. It's a public land use zone. So if you go online and look at Whitecourt Sandhills, it'll tell you right on there that the only thing that's allowed in there right now is cross-country skiing, equines, and hiking.
So right now, who enforces that?
Well, you have to phone forestry in Whitecourt, Alberta Forestry.
and Councillor Dean, you had your hand up and then we'll go.
Yeah, thanks for the chair too, Ellen. I guess I'm kind of going down the same path as Councillor Prestige. How do you see keeping quads and whatnot off those trails?
Education and usage. Right now, the trails haven't been used a lot by horses because they've been afraid to go in because of the quads, and just about all the quads and bikes have been very respectful. I'm not going to say that they do boot it through there, but they are respectful once they see you, but
Sure.
you know, that's usually a little bit too late. But I think it's through education that we have to do that, like signage, education, and usage is what we plan on doing.
That sounds great. And then I just had one other follow-up question. Are you aware of the Whitecourt District Ag Society's kind of blue sky plans to acquire land for horse trails just adjacent, I would call that just directly east, kind of northeast of the ag grounds?
So is that across the river?
No,
that you're talking-
it's on the same side of the river.
Okay.
But it starts to drop off.
So that what quarter section that's at the back?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So actually I was on the board for a while of the Ag Society. At that point, the reason I went off the board is because this has been something that I've been looking for quite a few years, when we could no longer ride on the mountain. And I think that that's a great idea. I really think that's an awesome idea, but I think that both could complement each other.
Sure.
I think too that that's, I haven't walked that part. When I was on the board, I was hoping to put in a camp spot that would have people bring their horses there and then they could ride on those trails or across. But yeah, I do know that, I am aware of that lease.
Okay, just for you and your organization,
Yeah.
I did walk it last summer
Yeah,
with Malcolm and Mike,
perfect.
and they kind of showed me what
Yeah.
their plans were, and from what I understand, what I encouraged them to do was work with our community services
Oh,
department
definitely,
on,
yeah.
trying to acquire
Yeah.
a provincial rec lease, but
Yeah.
Hopefully that's something, as you said,
Yeah.
could complement things.
Yeah, to complement, and that would be entirely different than what we're doing. We're taking over, we're going to manage an existing public land use zone. So that's kind of what we're looking for. But yeah, the more land we can have on for horses, the better. Mhm.
Thanks.
We're losing it throughout the province.
No, yeah.
Just kind of echoing what you're saying there, I know there's a lot of people even at the Fort of Assiniboine who come from all over to go ride in that area. Designated horse trails are kind of disappearing across the province, and having diversity for where people can ride in the area, because there are a lot of people in the area that have horses and don't have, 3-4 sections out back to go ride in, and are continuously looking for areas to go, so
Yeah.
I think it would complement each other.
Yeah, you bet.
Councillor Wilhelm?
Through the chair, so I am one of the dirt bike riders that rip through there, and
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
tell you, it's just as scary to come around a corner and
Yeah,
see a horse than it is
yeah,
for you guys
yeah.
to see us. And so I was actually the one who requested you guys come in because I just wanted to understand more fully what your guys' plan were
Yeah.
for the area. So I put the map up here. Are you guys, for development, like are you, obviously this is the main access road in, are you planning on developing the entire PLUs? I think a lot of it's just around education, right? The
Yes,
dirt bikers
we
and
are.
motorbikers are wondering what the heck's gonna go on, and they weren't sure exactly what the PLUs had
Yeah.
all covered. So
Yeah.
would you guys be creating a trail map for the entire PLUs?
Yes, yes, because part would be a staging area, and then there'd be another camping area, and then there'll be trails on the accessible parts. We don't want to be riding on the sensitive areas.
For sure, okay. And then you, like, I mean, to be fair, I think utilizing that land for what you guys want, especially if you're gonna develop and make it into a campground area and a staging area, would be
Yeah.
excellent use of that
Yes.
area.
Yeah.
I think education around what you guys are trying to accomplish here
Yeah.
could prevent any conflicts that you could foresee in the future.
Definitely, because everybody's been very respectful that we've come across. They weren't aware that they weren't allowed to use motor vehicles in there.
Mhm.
And, yeah, it's an education process, I think.
Yeah, I think that is where that education is lacking, is people are upset. They're saying, oh, well, the horse club wants to take away our riding area. Well, technically, that's not a riding area.
No,
And
it
if you
isn't.
get caught in there by forestry,
Yeah.
you could be fined, so.
Yeah. And
that's
they
it.
can go online and look that up, look up Whitecourt Sandhills PLUZ, and it'll be right on there that no motorized vehicles.
And just one last follow-up question. So with regards to use in the area, snowmobiles are permitted
Yes.
in the winter months?
Yes.
You wouldn't be looking to restrict the snowmobiles
No,
in that
not
area?
at all. No, that we think that that's a really good use to follow. We want to partner with other organizations that would be a good fit, but we want to keep it safe for everybody at all times. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Clute?
Yeah, just to add to what the other guys have been saying, I know that in the original conversations that they had at Sandhills Wildlands Park, that conversation was to divide that into two very separate places for recreation. And it did take a while for education and enforcement to have that be a pretty good place for that.
Yes.
And we don't get a lot of breaches anymore, so you're on the right path, and I commend you for that.
Thank you.
Councilor Williams?
Most of what I was gonna say is kind of covered, but I'm just speaking to the one by Fort Assiniboine. But they did obviously probably get approvals, but there's gates at some trailheads and things like that do help with the ATVs where horses can still go around,
Yeah.
and it's really well signed. I think that is
That's
like
a big thing.
huge thing for there, because both the north and south borders for a large portion of it are roadways, and you can see those signs very
Yeah.
frequently. So I think it's great ideas what you guys
Education.
are trying to do, and the one around Fort Assiniboine is really well used because it is really safe now, and there's not, like Councillor Kluken said, there's not a lot of people that have used that now or misuse it, so it just takes time.
Yeah, it takes time. I've ridden there quite a bit, actually, yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Right, any further questions, comments?
So just
Councilor Burrows?
Just one, since the CPO brought it up, the Alberta Public Land Act, so if we gave authority, if we request a letter and the province gives authority under the Public Land Act, then
We could
peace
police it.
officers can deal with some of this too, right?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, thanks.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Councilor Williams?
I'll make the first motion here. The council received the presentation from the Whitecourt Horse Club as
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on that motion? Not seeing any. Call the question. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. And then motion number 2, Councilor Dean?
Yeah, it's a mouthful here, but I'll roll with it. Move that Woodlands County Council support the Whitecourt Horse Club application to Forestry and Parks Alberta to become the trail master of the Whitecourt Sandhills Public Land Use Zone, and further that administration send a letter of support to the Whitecourt Horse Club for their application to Forestry and Parks Alberta to become the trail master of the Whitecourt Sandhills Public Land Use Zone.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing any? Call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. And thank you again very much for your time and for the presentation.
Thank you guys very much. It was very interesting.
All right, and with that, Nikita, we'll take a 10-minute break. We'll come back here at 25 after 11. Okay, we're back. It's 11:30. We'll start with 9.1 Bylaw 623/25, the annual ATV borrowing bylaw. Mr. World.
Thank you, Reeve Cush and members of council. Before you have an RFD that we need to produce on an annual basis for a bylaw for our bank, for our borrowing bylaw. It's in our banking agreement, so we have to do it annually. We're supposed to do it before December 31st each year. And it was daytimer to be done for December this year, but it did not happen, and I discovered that when I started, so I'm bringing it forward now for council. We'll ask that the council approves all 3 readings today if they're fine with the borrowing bylaw staying at $1 million. The intent of the operating line is obviously not to use it. We have sufficient funds. We've set it up at the ATB that if we ever go into overdraft in one of our accounts for some reason, they automatically take money out of our savings account. So we should not use this line of credit. But given that we had a line of credit of $10 million not that long ago, I wanted to keep it established so that if we ever did get in a situation, which we're hoping will never have happen again, that we have a borrowing bylaw in place.
All right, thank you for that. Any council passage?
I'll make a motion that council give first reading to bylaw 623/25.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Second reading, Councillor Burrows.
I'll make the motion that council gives second reading to bylaw 623/25.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll call the question again. All in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Kukin.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that council gives bylaw 623/25 annual ATB borrowing bylaw unanimous consent to proceed to third and final reading.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? And brings us to our last one. Councillor Burrows.
I'll make a motion that council gives third and final reading to bylaw 623/25.
Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion? None. Call the question. All in favor? That one's carried. 10.1 correspondence and information items. Any discussion on anything in there? Not seeing any. Councillor Wilhelm.
Motion that council receive the correspondence and information items for information as circulated.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's passed. Moves us down to 11.1, Council reports and questions. We'll start with Councillor Dean.
Thank you. Fairly light report. March 13th, I attended our monthly ECDEV meeting, and there was some discussion about supporting businesses with potentially integrating video information into a business directory. It's just at the committee level right now, but there was considerable discussion around the table about that. From the 17th and 19th, like the rest of council, and Mr. Ferris, I attended the RMA. It's always a very worthwhile event. Want to commend Councillor Burrows in his role as VP for handling the resolution sessions very, very well, and just in general, the conference was great, so you guys did a good job. And the last thing is, on the 20th, along with Councillor Kulkin and Wilhelm, I attended our community services meeting, and the function of that meeting was to award FCSS grants. One of the grants was to the Whitecourt District Boys and Girls Club. And just yesterday it was announced that organization is closing its doors, which is not good news for families in our community that were relying on their services for both before and after school care. But the board decided that due to their own internal budgetary reasons primarily, they just didn't have revenue to keep the operation going. And unfortunately, that organization moved from the Carland Center, which is across from Hilltop School, and that location seemed to really give it the ability to thrive. There was a lot of use, which equated to revenue for them. And not entirely sure of the reason, but they did move downtown into an office area that just didn't allow for much recreation for children. And I think, unfortunately, that might have contributed to some of the lack of attendance. But at the end of the day, that organization is closing, and there are families this morning scrambling to come up with a system to work with their kids for before and after childcare. So if you weren't aware of it, I just wanted to make everybody aware of that. And that's it.
Any questions, Councilor Dean? Message?
Through the chair to, I heard something on the radio this morning coming in about this, but I thought it was for Edson also. I'm not sure. Maybe I didn't hear it right.
Well, you may have heard that right. That's new information to me. I don't know that. I just know locally, the board just announced yesterday.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Councilor Wilhelm?
So yeah, like Councillor Dean said, I went to RMA. Repeat what he already said about it, but one thing I did do was go to a breakout room for rural economic development, and there was a discussion about a toolkit, and I think is an excellent tool that I'm going to share with our economic development committee. I think it will help it'll help the board and committee members understand like how they can develop better as committee members and how they can participate better in that committee. So hoping to present that to them. And then while I was also there, I met with the County of Camrose's Economic Development Officer and their REEV, and just a discussion around their business directory, how they utilize it in their community and how they've gotten so much buy-in, because I know in our own community sometimes we're having trouble getting buy-in on that business directory. So they've got a couple items that they shared with me that they think would really help get some more buy-in from our region. So I'm going to bring that to the ECDev committee. And then just to follow up on Councillor Dean's talk about the FCSS grants, he didn't give a total, but the total of those grants were $50,000. So pretty significant investment into our community through the Community Services Committee. And lastly, last Friday I went to the Lac Saint Anne audit report, just Lac Saint Anne Foundation. That's our seniors housing group for the area, and they just completed their audit, and it was perfect as usual. It's an awesome board to be part of, so an awesome group to participate in. So other than that, that's all I got.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Coogan?
Yeah, I attended on the 13th. I gave an update to the Economic Development Committee on the workings that growth was, and it was just an update to that point in time. Then on the 14th, we did have a growth meeting where we had a first look at the new website, which is developed, and we shared that with our ECDev practitioner here, and he was incredibly pleased with the product, and it's the next step for us to now be able to create a website that can be used regionally by a number of different municipalities, those that choose to buy into it. And we're hoping to be able to broaden the economic development service to those municipalities that currently don't have economic and don't even have economic development in their strategic plan. So for a regional presence, we feel that we can be that core group. We also hired a professional web designer to enhance our digital presence for the currently called Wild Alberta Tourism Guide. Normally that was a printed guide, but it's gotten so expensive, and we've seen too many of those sitting around, so we're going completely to a digital platform on that. And so we just allocated a fairly substantial number of funds to develop that, and hopefully by May long weekend we will have a digital presence there. So that was a big step. It was a difficult one because it took us a lot of arm twisting to get that to happen, and Bruce can probably attest to that, wasn't easy. But it's on the way now, and we're happy that it's moving. Then I went to the RMA from the 18th to the 18th and 19th. On the 20th, like reported by Al and Jeremy, I attended the community services meeting, and pretty much there's not a lot more to say about that. And then yesterday we had our committee meeting to forward our NRED grant aspirations to develop a conference in this region that starts to look at the connectivity of all of the industries in the emissions space, because the problem that we see is that there's a lack of understanding, especially in the new space, the new reality with what's happening south of the border. And industry wants to have a bigger role in letting us know as municipalities some of the things that we can do. And we had two industry players at the table yesterday, ANC and Viola from out of Swan Hills, who are helping us form that energy emissions conference that we propose to put on hopefully end of January 2026. And we've just got the wheels in motion to get that funded. $18,000, I believe, of that is from an NRED grant we got, or no, $33,000 is from our NRED grant. And the other stuff we'll be raising through our industry partners. This is in alignment with a lot of the work that's being done here at Woodlands. And we just want to extend that beyond into the regional borders as is written into our strategic plan. And then we are here today.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Coogan? Councillor Burrows?
Yeah, I've had the privilege to travel to a couple of different provinces actually and have conversations with rural municipalities that are struggling with a lot of the same thing that we are. So I've attended in Ontario and Saskatchewan as well, the rural municipalities in Saskatchewan. And there's an interesting theme, I guess, running through almost all of the municipalities, and it's the struggle to deal with infrastructure costs. Everything is getting older, there's more and more downloading from province and federal governments onto municipalities. But I'm always trying to paint the picture, and I think we had a conversation around this with several people at RMA, that the rural communities, the rural municipalities, and that infrastructure is the bridge to the raw materials that are the building blocks of the urbans. So the raw materials being gravel, wood, fiber, energy, and agriculture. So if we neglect the infrastructure that provides access to those raw resources, then the price of poker is going to go up a great deal if we can't get access. So these are some of the pictures that we're trying to paint anyways to the province and the federal government, and that the population has to be taken with a bit of a grain of salt when it comes to looking at some of the infrastructure investment numbers in municipalities. But I look back, where we were 7 and a bit years ago, we're in a much healthier place now, and primarily due to the hard work of our staff and the decisions made by council, and some really hard decisions to try and get ourselves out of it. So I'm happy with where we are compared to other municipalities. We're doing quite well. I guess the other thing that I've been getting quite a few reports on, and I don't know if we'll hear about it in the CAO update, is that some of that new cold mix that's been put down is has turned into a bit of a slurry, and I know it was late in the year, and it was supposed to be seal coated yet. So I just, and I'll ask on a CAO update on that process. And then the last thing is, we're approaching the spring where the river's gonna break up, and I've got a lot of residents down on flats, so, you know, they're asking questions about flood mitigation and some of that. So as we come to these discussions on land use bylaws, and I know we have one in there with, you know, how wrecked does a property have to be before you can replace a building or a mobile? You know, a lot of people that are in those areas, some of them were remapped since they've been owned. The bank is still holding the mortgage, so you're stuck, you know. And if they want to upgrade the property, some of it becomes prohibitive. So I hope those conversations continue as we polish off the land use. That is it for me. Oh, and thank you for the support at RNA. The resolution session was 2 hours and a little bit, and it's a little stressful, but I appreciate the support. Thank you.
Any questions for Councilor Burrows? Councilor Prestidge?
Hey, we had our landfill meeting. Two things, we had to go into our reserves to pay for a repair on the big compactor. It was $75,000, I believe. So it's fixed now. And the other one is next week we have a meeting. We're finally getting our quotes in for the scale and scale house. So we'll be making a decision on okaying that if it's all in line. And then, what's another one? Oh, West End bus meeting. We are looking at buying a new bus. We have $155,000 in reserves, so we don't have to come back to councils to get funding to do it. And the other thing is we've had requests from county residents on the west end of the county to go on the bus. But currently we fund, I think it's $24,000 for the east end of the county. Lax NN contributes $50,000 for their east end of the county. So I think if we have residents that want the service in the west end of the county, we should be funding more to compensate for that. So maybe have some conversations with your residents, see if they are interested in doing it. I know, Al, you have some in your area that asked. So if we can work around that and maybe fund some more, it'd have to be in next year's budget, but it's worthwhile.
Just a question to that. Where is the border, east-west?
It's mostly along 658.
Okay.
The other thing is, we go up to Fort Assiniboine, Goose Lake, and we're gonna change it. We have a thing in the, you have to have 4 residents before the bus will go up there. But with all those new residents around Goose Lake, we're thinking about taking that away to get, you know, more people interested in coming. So, you know, like if we allow one person to come on, maybe they'll tell some of their friends and we'll get more. But it is very worthwhile.
Can I do that point though too, it wasn't the last meeting, one before that, they were talking about ridership. We don't have much between Fort Assiniboine and Goose in the Ford area. A lot of those people have been catching buses, I think, are kind of going that way. So my thing is, if we're paying for that portion of the trip, we're part of other funding, but we're not getting it, maybe we just redraw direction that we're going.
I asked that same question, and The Barhead area pretty much only does like picking people up and taking them to their doctor's appointments. That's pretty much all they're doing. So on the excursions, they don't do that.
No, but our ridership on the excursions, they said there's just about nothing out of that end right now. So that's what I was just saying, is if we're paying for that leg of the county, but we're not utilizing that leg of the county, maybe we look at, instead of going this way, we go this way over here.
That's an option.
Yeah.
But we're trying to get more people from that area.
Councillor Coogan?
Yeah, is there, I know FCSS has a new bus in Barhead, and they go all the way out to the fort. Maybe there's a conversation that could happen there that they could support the West End bus in some way. I don't know what
Well,
that.
they have been in talks with them, but like I just said, their service is more to bring people to the doctor, the hospital, or appointments, not to do the excursions like to the city
Right,
and that
right.
stuff, so. I know we've been in talks with Barhead and they really don't wanna,
Yeah, I'll pursue that a little bit and just see what's possible there.
Any other questions for Councillor Prestige? Councillor Williams?
I think most of my stuff was covered, but we attended the ACDev committee meeting, and that was covered off, and also RMA. But the one thing I was gonna mention a little bit is the Camp Creek. A lot of people maybe already heard about this, but it's gonna be in the papers. Camp Creek Community Group disbanded, and that's in Barhead County. But they had a large number of funds, like $1 million or $1.5 million in their account, and they donated that out to a whole bunch of community groups. A lot of them were within Barhead County, but they also donated, don't quote me on the numbers, but I think it's $297,000 to the Fort Assiniboine Ag Society. And they also donated $75,000 to the Fort Assiniboine Fire Department. So those are big amounts of money for a little hamlet to get for a donation. So they did a photo op at the Barhead Leader. They gave money out to the ski hill. I wasn't there, but lots of organizations around Barhead anyway. So a lot of those community groups all just got a pretty nice little chunk of change. So huge shout out to them. I thought that was very thoughtful of them to reach out outside of their, borders of their county and think of us as well. So, yeah, I thought that was a great thing. So, look in the paper. I think they have it all listed off in the Barhead Leader. They will anyways, and photo ops and stuff. So they gave out a ton of money. So, cool.
Good news.
Yeah, yeah. Great.
Any questions for Councillor Williams? For my report, mine actually fairly short. I really haven't been in the area here for the last little while. Came back for the last half of RMA. Again, props to Councillor Birtles for managing himself up there for a couple hours, and for RMA, they usually get a really good, diverse panel when we get the ministers up there to ask questions, and again, very good job on that. And the only other thing that I was able to make, last night, I had an Ensemble Ag Committee meeting. Upgrades to their kitchen are basically complete at this point. They've been waiting for a couple of years to get a new stove in, part of it through grant funding, and just kind of where they're at. I said a huge shout out to Heather Anderson from the county here for all of her work working with the community group on securing the capital grants that they use for upgrades to the facilities. She's always great to work with, and they said out of a lot of the communities they work with, she's one of the easiest. So good to know. And April 26th, tickets aren't out yet, but just trying to promote their spring barbecue forum. It usually sells out right away. It's a good meal, good show, good band. So it is coming. If everybody pays attention to their Facebook page, it'll announce when the tickets come out. So, and that's what I got. Councilor Prestige.
just one more item that I wanna bring up is Saturday night is our firefighters appreciation awards. It would be great if as many counselors can go as possible. It's been a long time coming to get this back, and thanks to staff and council, we made it happen, so it'll be really appreciated by our firefighters.
Appreciated, well deserved.
Exactly.
Any other questions, comments? Not seeing anybody get a motion to move the council reports. Council Rose?
I'll make a motion that we accept the council reports for information.
Thank you, Councillor. Without a public question, all in favor? That's carried. Moves us down to 11.2, Community Services Operational Report for March. Ms. Ludwig?
Thank you, Reeve and Council. My understanding is we're gonna do these quarterly, however, I think I had mine in already, so they just chose to keep it on the agenda. So as you can tell, fairly busy month for the departments. Protective Services, thank you, Bruce, for mentioning. I was just gonna bring up the recognition night for the fire departments on March 29th in Blue Ridge at starting at 5:30, so hoping we can see some attendance there. And again, thanks, Devin. I was going to bring up the $75,000 donation that was received. Very much appreciated. Health and safety. Our coordinator has provided a safety report with stats, and I'm proud to say that we're seeing a significant increase in our training compliance and more inspections that are being logged in our workup program. Planning, of course, is still focused on the land use bylaw and just currently going through the regulations and wrapping it up, and hopefully soon we'll be able to bring it back to the committee that we had established to do a final review of that. We also have a new revenue source in the planning department. With our new acquisition of our ortho photography, we've had a couple companies reach out to us and wanting to get into a data share agreement and selling it, and then any funds that they receive will get a percentage of that back. So that's exciting to know, because then maybe we can have those orthos done up a little more frequently than every 5 years, because they are an integral part for the planning department, as well as probably our asset management team too, once we get that program up and running and established. Community services, the big thing, of course, is the volunteer appreciation function that's coming up on May 3rd. Heather's focused on that one. She's excited that Danny Hooper will be the lead performer. We've received 23 nominations for the volunteers, so that's great to know. We were a little concerned because before the deadline was coming up, I think we only had 9 essentially, and yeah, so did a little bit of a push and managed to get 23 in, so that's exciting. My understanding is that we have 1 for each category at the very least, so that'll be good to do a presentation of. Economic development, Bert was away for a little part of March there. He was at his economic development leadership training session. One item to note is that he will be providing an update on the NRED application that the county has received, about $255,000 from the province, which is exciting to hear. So he'll just give an overview of what those funds will be utilized for, either at the next council meeting. However, I believe there's a few councillors that are at the economic development conference, as well as he will be in attendance there too. So whether it be that meeting or the following council meeting, he'll provide that update. And that's everything.
Any questions for Joe? Not seeing any. Councillor Williams?
I'll make a motion that council receives the March 2025 Community Service Operational Report as information.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. We have service tracker report on here twice, I just noticed. Do we want to do that before yours, Matthew, or?
Yeah, we can do it before mine, absolutely.
Okay, we'll do just kind of 11.7 there, service tracker monthly report for February.
Alright, it'll be pretty quick here. So before you is the service tracker report for February 2025. Pretty standard, mostly snow plowing sanding requests. But one thing to point out is we did see a lot of employee kudos, almost one in every division, so a total of 11 for the month. People really appreciating the work the grader operators are doing out there. And I've also included, per council's request, the dates on the service requests.
Any questions for Nikita? Councilor Prestige?
I'll make a motion that council accept the February monthly service tractor report as information.
Thank you, Councilor Prestige. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's moved and takes us to 11.6, the CAO report.
Thank you, Mr.
Ferris.
Chair. So I think Joan undersold how well some of the stuff we're doing in her department. We absolutely saw an uptick on the safety software, but to put it in perspective, month over month, it was a 400% increase. So it's it says 80 inspections, but we've significantly increased some of the buy-in from the field staff in particular. So the 400% increase does need to be noted to you guys, just on how well Joan and her team are doing, and overall from an organizational perspective on just championing safety. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Other than the day-to-day, we're just finalizing with the senior management team the census questions. We will get those out to you probably no later than next week. We have a fairly substantial list. We're trying to thin it down from a management perspective. So not only does it cover some census stuff, but also some strategic planning information, as well as some service delivery questions to be a little bit more comprehensive to get the input from the public. We're working on a tax insert, and as I told some of you, this year when we do our tax notices, there will be a standalone insert with all of them to explain some of the changes, to explain the significant costs the provincial downloading has had on the overall tax bill, to distinguish what is and is not a municipal cost, just to help clarify that where we can. Right now we're working on the two big policies, council-wise, I think, is the community engagement policy will be before the committee fairly soon. Not only is it out of date from a review point of perspective for legislative, there's just some tweaks we need to do to make sure it's fully compliant within our legislation. Over the last couple of weeks, Andrew and I have been finalizing a draft reserve policy, but we'll be bringing some high-level discussions on that to the Finance Tax Committee, just because there are some things where we may see things differently, but we need to see where council sees it, just to ensure that we're in a cohesive vision when it comes to how we handle our reserves going forward. So that'll be a big push. I believe that's a 5 or 6 year old item that council's really wanted to get a better understanding on our reserves. So we've had a lot of thorough discussions on that. All our staff have given us, all our management team have provided us an initial high-level 4-year targets and deliverables for the respective department business plans. So over the next couple months, senior leadership and I will review those in relation to not only what the staff see, but also what council has in their current strategic and tactical plans, and making sure that it is manageable, but also that we're ensuring everyone's held accountable. So we're making some pretty good strides that way. As Joan mentioned, based on some of the discussions that we have had, we are going to be switching a lot of the reporting to quarterly, just giving you monthly updates when there's very little change. Sometimes on some of these items it doesn't necessarily make the best use of our time. But that being said, we'll make sure that we provide you with appropriate information on capital projects and that sort of thing, so you're not blindsided by unexpected work or that sort of thing. We'll still make sure you get those as you need monthly. At this point, there are no capital projects starting up this month. So it's just a heads up that way. If that changes, at the very least, you'll get an email. But if not, it'll be brought towards a council meeting. We're also working on reviewing the committee bylaw. Some of our ad hoc committees, from the sounds of it, we want to have as a more permanent basis, but we also want to ensure that the committees that we have are what council wants, but also so that administration is getting the benefit out of them as equally. So that will be before the GNP committee in April, but we've been working on it this month. Similarly, from a procedure bylaw perspective, we're going through that and making sure what our actual process is reflected within the bylaw, because some of them have become unwritten policies contrary to what our document said. So we're just making sure we're talking the talk that our documents say. So just cleaning up some things that way. And then preparation for tax committee next week. And then just in regards to the Gibson Road stuff, we did do that engineering review before Jeff was away. We've looked at it. Our opinion is that for the inconvenience of those two subdivisions, we believe that the do-nothing approach right now, while unsatisfactory to those residents, at the end of the day is probably going to save us $30,000 to $40,000. And though they are getting chip sealed this year. So I believe it's a short-term inconvenience. We have put in place ways to try and mediate the issues some of the people are having while addressing some of the current concerns of the stuff sticking to their vehicles and stuff that we feel, while may not be satisfactory to everyone, I think it's a fair compromise without unnecessarily spending the $30,000 to $40,000 extra on the project. But overall, that's kind of where we're at so far this month.
Any questions for Matthew? Councillor Burrows?
Yeah, excuse me, and just on that, the road report.
Absolutely.
That we were talking about, I think the biggest thing is that we, two parts. So first part is that the people on those roads understand that this is an incomplete project.
Yep.
It's not gonna stay that way.
Absolutely.
And that there will be some short-term pain for some long-term gain with the chip seal. And secondly, I don't wanna commit anybody to this, but we probably wouldn't do it that late in the year in another subdivision again.
Through the chair, I would hope we learn from our mistakes. You can't guarantee you and give you a 100% certainty on it, but unless it was absolutely necessary, no, we would try and ensure that we were further ahead in our capital projects. And I know with this year, we started our capital projects and our tendering last year, which has also helped us prepare for this year. So I think we're further ahead this year than we were last.
Thank you, that's perfect, I appreciate that.
Any other questions for the CEO? Councillor Burrows and Councillor Prestidge.
Oh, I was gonna move,
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna move.
Can I ask one question quick? Just given that I know we do have spring coming up and water flows, and we do have residents, we've been getting some communication around the Cut Banks area and Old Ferry Loop. I know we're been unsuccessful in looking and securing some of the grant funding, but just so I guess residents know that this is something that we're still actively pursuing, I guess, alternatives or solutions, or is it something that we've kind of put on the back burner currently?
So the twofold, the one motion from council previously was to at least install those turnarounds in the event that the cut bank does entirely erode the road, so that those individuals still have safe access, albeit inconvenient. The one grant application that was presented to the province, they'd indicated that fund had closed. We thought it would be a stretch. Ultimately, the province said no. There is still another avenue we are looking at, but from an immediate point of view, we will be installing those turnarounds, which will, we believe, address the issue if there is another flood there in the near future, if it was to a similar scale and size as the previous ones. As an intermittent measure, the other grant application that we are looking at, if that proceeds, then we'll bring that back for council for more information. We are looking at it, but we aren't looking at it unless there is another funding operation on the table besides strictly county dollars. It would need to be a partnership with the province just to make it affordable at least in the opinion of administration, to justify those level of costs for such a small number of our residents is something we're a bit leery to recommend being a sole source county project.
Councilor Rose?
Sorry, just one clarification. You said the turnarounds for the cut banks. Was that Old Ferry or cut banks?
Sorry, I'm assuming my lack of knowledge in the names of our communities.
Yeah.
It's in Old Ferry. I'm talking the bank where it's being cut on the river. So that's my apologies there in the incorrect terminology.
No, and again, I appreciate that. I just wanted to get that clarified for my own understanding as well. Thanks.
Councilor Prestige?
Through the chair to Matthew. On the cut bank one, we were looking at buying some property and making a new road. Have we done anything for that? You might not know, but
I don't recall what we're doing there. I know Jeff and I spoke on it before he went on holidays, but beyond that, I haven't had any involvement with cut bank, so I'd have to ask Jeff.
Councilor Dean?
Just going by memory, Bruce, we were presented with some options.
Yeah.
And given the fact that the option that you're talking about that has been on the books for quite a while, within that option, a portion of the road, the new road that would be constructed was in the floodplain. And so the recommendation was to, not go forward with that because you're building a road that's partially in the floodplain.
Any other questions, comments to CEO? Not seeing any. Somebody wants to make a motion? Councilor Rose?
I'll move the council accepts the CAO report as information.
Thank you, Councilor. Call the question, all in favor? And that's moved. Takes us to our closed meeting. If I can get a motion to go into closed session under Flip 21. Councilor Rose?
I'll make a motion that we move into a closed session under FOIC 21 for intermunicipal collaborative framework.
Any discussion on that? Not seeing any. Call the question, all in favor? It's moved. We're going to go into closed session at 12 after 12. Okay, we're back from closed session. We got one motion here before we adjourn. That was Councilor Dean.
I'd move that council accepts the discussion on the intermunicipal collaboration framework as information.
Thank you, Councilor. Call the question, all in favor? It's moved. Brings us to number 13. Councilor Wilhelm.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Discussion there. Call the question, all in favor. And we are adjourned at 12:57. Thank you, everybody.